My husband and I recently went to see M3GAN in theaters, and before I was a little reluctant about going to see the movie. However, I saw the trailers and I'm glad I went because I was pleasingly surprised. Now, M3GAN is produced by Blumhouse. I love Blumhouse films simply because they always bring the horror element and the fear elements to the big screen. It was also written by Akilah Cooper and James Wan. And Akilah is famous for movies like *Malignant* and *The Nun 2*, while James is famous for, the *Conjuring* series, *Annabelle*, *Dead Silence*, which is one of my favorites, and *Insidious*. M3GAN stars Allison Williams. You guys may have remembered her from the movie Get Out, and she's also from the movie on Netflix called The Perfection. And the other actress, Violet McGraw, she is from The Haunting and Black Widow and Dr. Sleep. So many people were comparing M3GAN to Chucky from Child's Play. However, she was a little different. Imagine Chucky and Skynet and they meshed together. So that was M3GAN. I thought M3GAN was witty. It was funny. It had some dark moments, but all in all, it was a fun watch. And M3GAN stars Allison Williams as Gemma. She's the aunt of a child who lost both her parents sadly in a horrific car crash on a snowy mountain. And that actress, played by Violet McGraw, is Caddy. And Caddy goes to live with her aunt Gemma, and things don't go so well. Gemma is not really maternal, and when Caddy arrives, it's really difficult for the two to connect. Now, it appears that Gemma wasn't very close with her sister, and the niece, it was kind of difficult for Gemma to love her because the niece was still in the process of grieving for her parents, which was understandable. So Gemma dives more into her work. Gemma is actually a robotics engineer at a company that they're currently trying to create the next best toy. And Gemma, they have an item out, kind of like Furby, if you guys remember Furby back in the day. And this item is doing okay, but the sales are not as good as they want it to be, or the projections that they want. So they're trying to develop another toy that's less because there's a competitor that's selling a similar toy for cheaper. So Gemma goes back to the drawing board and she's trying to develop another toy that can get on the market and that can be cheaper for people to afford. She has a backdoor project, which is M3GAN. And basically it's a robot. It's in its rawest form. So, her and her team, they were working on this robot on the low because they didn't want their boss to find out. So while they're buying the components, they bought M3GAN a face, and the boss walks in and he's just hysterical because he sees this secret project that they've been working on. He's like, I spent so much money, trying to perfect this thing, and you guys are going off the rails and doing a side project. So he was clearly upset. So Gemma tells him that she'll scrap, the life-size doll, and says, she'll get rid of it. So she took the parts home. So while in the process of trying to bond with her niece, Caddy is still suffering from grief and loss, and she's kind of isolated, not really talking much, and she's just in this new home, and she's missing her parents. So Gemma decides to dive into her work. She tries to parent Caddy the best way she knows how by giving her, offering her electronics. So Gemma goes into her workstation in the basement, and she's putting together in the garage, and she's putting together this robot. So while she's assembling her, Caddy gets curious, and Gemma's basically telling her, this is the type of work I do. She did let her in a little bit about her career. As time is going on, a therapist visits the home, and she's there to assess Gemma and Caddy's relationship. And you can tell that it's a strained relationship. They're still trying to get to know each other, and they're basically strangers. So Gemma got the bright idea, because Caddy mentioned, she's like, if I ever had a toy, I wouldn't need any other toy. So Gemma got the bright idea to continue her work building the robot M3GAN. So Gemma is just like this genius. She built a robot in college, and she took those skills with her to this toy company, and she's far more genius and excelled versus her counterparts. So she starts to build this robot. She gets her team in to help build it for her, and M3GAN is born. So they're training M3GAN how to recognize speech. M3GAN is able to access the internet to download information and keep up to date with everything. Gemma commissioned M3GAN to be her protector. So, Gemma can focus more on her work and have something looking after Caddy, but it's not such a good idea to leave, Caddy's care in the arms of a robot. So as time progresses, Gemma is excited and her boss is excited because he finds out about the backdoor project that they were working on. So she shows her boss her specs for a M3GAN and says what she was designed to do. They even had a live demo with M3GAN and Caddy's interaction, and it was so pure and so raw that everybody was touched by it. It looked like she had these almost responding to human emotions and having empathy and things like that people want to see, versus a robot with no feelings. So as time goes on, again, M3GAN is tasked to protect Caddy, and you could see where M3GAN is becoming possessive or overprotective of Caddy. So the next door neighbor has a dog. It bit Caddy in an altercation, and Gemma and this neighbor have been going to, at odds, bumping heads with each other for a while, and the neighbor's dog went missing. Of course, M3GAN had something to do with it. M3GAN can actually change her voice and modify it according to whatever sound she's heard, a person, an animal, etc. So she uses this throughout the movie to trick people into following that particular sound or voice. So she did so with the dog, and the dog was taken off the map. It was unalived. And she did so with the neighbor because the neighbor became troublesome to Caddy. So anybody who gets in Caddy's way, just kind of like a typical robot responding to the ownership over the master, or this protectorship over the master. That's how she function. So her primary goal was to take out anyone or to eliminate any threats that were over Caddy. So there was a boy that was in the scene that was really mean to Caddy. Gemma was trying to integrate Caddy into being more social with others, and Caddy was having such difficulty adjusting because she was going through the phases of grief and loss. And Caddy was now at the point of anger, where every little thing agitated her, and she was having a lot of conflict with her Aunt Gemma, and it was just bad. The behavioral stuff was just bad. She was lashing out. She was physically violent with her aunt because she wanted to have M3GAN with her at all times. So Gemma is trying to break the hold that M3GAN has on Caddy, and it's not a good environment for her to be latching on to this thing that's not human. But Caddy's throwing a fit, and she wants M3GAN with her at all times. And the aunt finally gave in because they were at a point where other people saw M3GAN. So she tried to integrate M3GAN into a social group for Caddy. And when Caddy went to do activities, M3GAN was placed with the other toys that the other children brought. And there was a boy there, and he was very cruel to Caddy. I mean, psychotic. No empathy. And he took M3GAN and started, put M3GAN on the ground and started punching her because he wanted to see what the robot could do. But M3GAN wasn't showing herself to this boy. She would only take commands from Caddy because Caddy was the primary operator. And sadly, he effed around and found out, and he was unalived because, again, M3GAN was protecting Caddy from harm or danger. And he was unalived in the most graphic way. His ear was pulled off, and he was pushed down a hill, and he rolled and tumbled in front of a vehicle and was taken off the map. So Gemma is starting to find out that something may be wrong with M3GAN, that she may be killing or hurting people. So she confronts M3GAN and asks her, and M3GAN has this it's this angsty way about answering her, and she has an attitude, and it's this kid's voice and kid's body, but it's cold and it's evil, and you can tell there's something behind it. So Gemma is worried that M3GAN is hurting people. So she wanted to have her decommissioned. That was the only thing, because they didn't want to go live with this product, because what the idea was is that her boss would take this product and they would mass produce it. So every, child could have a M3GAN of their own, or maybe a boy robot of their own, so they could have in the household. And Gemma saw this, and red flags of course went up, and she's like, okay, this is not ready to go to the production line yet, because M3GAN is broken, something is wrong with her. So when they do some checking, they found out that M3GAN doesn't have any parameters or protocols. She doesn't have the built-in ability for like moral codes. She just knows that she should protect, and if protecting means kill, then she's fine with it. So Gemma decides to put her in a trunk, tape her up and shut her off, thinking that she can just take her back to the lab and have her decommissioned, and that will be it. M3GAN is on. She's in full effect. She takes over and she tries to kill everybody within the office. She unalives the boss. She goes after whoever, and her primary goal is to get back to Caddy. So Gemma, in the process, she took Caddy home. She told her friends at the lab that she was going to shut down the whole launch, because they were supposed to do a pre-launch for pre-orders for other robots to be built like M3GAN. So Gemma wanted to shut all of that down, which she did, but she didn't know that M3GAN can turn herself back on at will. And she's been doing that throughout the movie, where she can listen in on what's happening. M3GAN even programmed another bot, kind of like an answering service, or what we would call our Siri, as a personal assistant. She even programmed that to spy on the household. So M3GAN was just ingrained in everything. She wanted Caddy all to herself, and if it meant unaliving Gemma, then she would do so. So Gemma is forced to try to shut down M3GAN at the house. M3GAN actually steals a car, drives to Gemma's house, and she's trying to tell Gemma now that Caddy is hers, and she will not let anyone stand in her way. But she's giving Gemma the choice to just fall back. She's saying, hey, Gemma, you're not a good, parent. Parenting is not for you. Obviously, you can focus on your work, and I will take full responsibility of Caddy. And Gemma, of course, is terrified because M3GAN is now a murderer. So Gemma doesn't agree with it. This is late at night, and Caddy is awakened by the argument that she and M3GAN are having in the living room. Caddy is standing there listening in, and Gemma is trying to assure her that everything's okay, because M3GAN is now threatening Gemma's life. So Caddy goes back to her room. There's a horrible scuffle in the dining area, and M3GAN is basically holding down Gemma and trying to unalive her. So Gemma reaches for a glass of water. She throws it on M3GAN, and the water is a reaction, because since M3GAN is a robot and has robotic parts, she is having some type of malfunction. So M3GAN becomes even more murderous. She's chasing Gemma through the house. Caddy finally awakens and sees what's happening. They run to the garage, and Gemma has to think she has to take this robot out before it takes them out. So they're having this battle in the garage, and Caddy's getting involved. And Caddy was smart enough to use another prototype robot that her aunt actually built, and she was able to fight M3GAN this way, because they weren't strong enough to fight M3GAN. So, and M3GAN is cold. She's trying to take people off the map. Anyone who interferes with her relationship with Caddy is a target, essentially. So they're going out in the garage. Caddy uses this prototype robot to fight M3GAN. And it looks like M3GAN is taken out, but you always have to do a double tap. Any horror movie, you don't just let the killer lie. You have to do a double tap to make sure that they are unalived completely. So, of course, M3GAN comes back. She's like ripped in half, and she's still coming, just like the Terminator. She's still coming, and finally, she's able to be taken off the map. But what happens is, now we know that as the movie keeps, as the movie's closing, we know that Gemma is going to have more of a relationship with her niece, because M3GAN is no longer in the picture, and Gemma's basically forced now to be a real full-time, or at least a real parent, and be present in Katie's life, even though she is this robotics engineer. So I think the movie had a lot of cool elements. It was nice to see it done a little differently. It was kind of a breath of fresh air. I mean, we've seen movies with androids, killer androids, and so on, but for an artificial like robot to integrate in a person's life, become a caregiver, and then be protective, and then the person who designed it didn't design the protocols, that makes sense. And that makes us kind of think, even though this is a little sci-fi and horror blended in, it makes us think that what would the world look like if we had other, androids or robots walking around? What would that be? Would these robots be caregivers over people? Would people trust them with their children? So they did make a point in the movie to say, what if, M3GAN was in other households, and how would those parents be able to parent their kids if this robot was parenting their child? Would they be able to take over? And you want to think about all this stuff because M3GAN was so possessive, and she was scary, because if she didn't get what she wanted, she would use intimidation. If intimidation didn't work, she would threaten. If threatening didn't work, she would just unalive someone. So that made you think, and there's definitely going to be a part 2, because they've actually greenlit a part 2, and it's going to be called M3GAN 2.0. I think the fans really did enjoy this movie because it was fun. It was more lighthearted than other typical movies. It did have horror elements, and there were people being unalived, and it was fun. It was exciting, and honestly, I was surprised and pleased with the movie itself overall. So let me know in the comments section if you saw M3GAN and what were your favorite scenes, because I would like to know. And if you haven't seen the movie and you got this far, I hope I didn't ruin it for you, but definitely go and check it out.
Hey, you lost your parents. Welcome home. You're my niece. I'm gonna do everything I can to make this place feel like home.
Just wish I could see them again.
I'm not equipped to handle this. I don't even take care of my own plants. I have this project at work. Do you want to see?
Yes.
Ever since I was little, I dreamed of this perfect toy that would protect a kid from ever feeling lonely or sad. This is M3GAN.
Hi, M3GAN. I'm Caddy. It's nice to meet you, Caddy. Do you want to hang out? Okay.
M3GAN, your goal is to protect Katie from harm, both physical and emotional. Is that a doll? Model 3 generative android. M3GAN, short.
I can't believe you made this. I love it. Great job.
It's honestly like she's part of the family now. They could be building emotional connections.
Mango, are you drinking?
Hard to untangle. She's the happiest she's been since her parents died. Eat the toppings, Katie.
Research shows if you force a child to eat vegetables, they'll be less likely to choose those foods as adults.
Is that so?
Yes, experts say.
M3GAN, turn off.
I thought we were having a conversation.
Does she talk? Make her say something.
Stop! Don't! M3GAN!